Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in this tutorial we are going to learn about various drawing functions in an OpenCV. So by drawing functions, what I mean is that how you can draw various sort of figures in an image. For example, like arrow, line, or a line simply, or you can also draw rectangles, circles, ellipse, and many such figures. So we have various functions for that in OpenCV. So we will have a look at them individually. So let's first import our library, which is import cv2, and then finally we are just going to assign a variable, and inside this I am going to give the path, right? So for that you have imread function to read the path of your image, and then finally I'm gonna put down the image of put down the path of my image. So for this I'm just gonna copy this one and then just paste it inside a string. Okay, so we are gonna paste it inside a string. So for that you will need this one, and finally to avoid such mistakes you will need to have a double slash. So once you do this, finally you will need to actually give the name of the image. Okay, so this is a short, so let's keep it as deer. So deer dot jpg. You also need to mention the file extension. So in my case it was der and it was jpg, and therefore I am finally giving .jpg. So this is how you actually read the image, right, which we have also done previously. And then finally what we are going to do is that we are going to see this, right? So how are we going to do that? For that we have imshow function, so cv2.imshow, and then you have finally the windows name, so let's keep it as res, and then pass on the image, and finally the wait key, so wait key is 0, let's keep it as 0, and then finally destroy all windows. So we have already done this in previous tutorial, so I don't think there is any confusion left with these things, right? So once we do this, you will notice that your image will appear. So all right, so this one is quite a bit huge, right? So let's do some resizing. So for that, just simply put on image equal to cv2.resize, resize it to a suitable length. So firstly you need to pass on the image. You are in a need to keep it in let's say 500 comma 600 maybe. Okay, so 500 is a width and 600 is a height, right? So all right, so this is how your image is now looking. All right, so finally after doing these things, now we are in a need to actually use the drawing functions, right? So let's see how do we do that. So for that you have a very simple thing. So let's use the drawing functions. So first let me draw an arrow line. Okay, so how do we draw arrow line? So for arrow line it actually accepts these parameters. So first thing is that it will accept your image, it will accept your image, it will accept your starting coordinates and ending coordinates. Okay, starting coordinates and end coordinates. It's going to accept your color code, and lastly it's gonna accept your thickness. Okay, so these are the things which we require. So let's have how do we do that. So for that I'm going to write image equal to cv2 dot arrow line. So this one is the function. Okay, this one is the function. Yeah, and you need to pass first the image, right? Image which is stored here, and then you have to give the starting coordinates and the ending coordinates. Okay, so for that let's give the starting coordinates as, okay, you can keep it any, so let's keep it as 0 comma 125, and the ending coordinates as all right, ending coordinates let's keep it as 255 comma 255. Okay, let's keep it something like this. And then you will need to find the color code, which means that your BGR value, since in the case of OpenCV it's gonna read my BGR value, so I'm gonna keep my BGR value for this. So color code, so let's keep it as 128 or 127 comma 0 comma 255, and finally the thickness, it means the thickness of your line. So once I do this, you will notice that I have actually got a arrowed line. Okay, so let's try and go and run this. So if you see this, you will notice arrow line. Okay, it shares that module cv2 has no attribute arrow line. Okay, let me see what was the problem there. So all right, so actually L should be capital. Okay, L should be capital. So now let's run this. All right, you can see that an arrowed line like this, right? So basically you have successfully drawn an arrowed line, right? Now what I mean by thickness is that this one is 5. Now if I do 1, you will notice a thinner line, or you can see a very thin line out there, right? So basically this one is your thickness, this one is a color code, right? This one is a color code which is accepts the value as bg and r, and this one is a starting coordinates, this one is a ending coordinates, and this one is a what, image. So this is how you draw an arrowed line. Okay, so now let's draw a rectangle. Right, so rectangle accepts which parameters, let me show you, right? So basically it will accept your firstly the image, right? And then it's gonna show you the starting coordinates, and you're gonna require the ending coordinates, and you're also required to color code, and finally the thickness. So quite similar to previous one, I mean the same thing, right? So for that you have image2 equal to cv2 dot rectangle. Okay, rectangle. So this one is a rectangle, so let's keep something. So image and the starting coordinates, let's keep it as 447 comma 125, and let's keep the ending coordinates as 510 comma 238. Okay, let's keep it at, and then let's keep the color code finally. So let me keep here 128 comma 0 comma 255. Okay, and finally let's keep the thickness as 5. So once you do this, this is actually your ending coordinates. Sorry, this one is a starting coordinates, this one is the ending coordinates, this one is a color code, and this one is the thickness. All right, so let's see this. All right, so you're going to notice the rectangle, so it's actually very there. So let's actually change some coordinates in it. All right, so let's keep it as 384 comma 12, right? And let's keep it as 510 comma 138. Well, all right, 138. Okay, now let's see. Still very there. Okay, so maybe you will need to resize it again. All right, so there you can see finally rectangle being drawn, right? So this one is a rectangle. So basically if you type your -1, or you can simply type your -5, then it is going to give you the whole colored rectangle. Okay, you can notice that it's a whole colored rectangle for now, right? So basically that is how we draw a rectangle. Firstly you need to pass on the image, the starting coordinates, the ending coordinates, the color code, and finally the thickness. Now let's go and move on with the circle. So for a circle you need an image, and you will also need starting coordinates, right? Starting coordinates, and then you will be requiring the radius, right? Radius, and finally the color code, sorry, then color code, and lastly the thickness. Okay, thickness, right? So let's see how we gonna do this. So image equal to cv2 dot circle, and finally you will need to pass the image, and then let's keep the starting coordinates. Okay, let's keep the starting coordinates. So let's keep it as 227 comma all right, let's keep it as 144, and finally the radius, so let's keep it as 65, and let's keep the color thickness, so I mean the color code, so 214 comma 255 comma 0, and then the thickness of your circle, so let's keep it as 4. Let's just change it to 5, and just change the thickness of arrow line as 4, so that you will be noticing all the figures properly. All right, now once I use this, you can see my circle out there, right? So basically it accepted which parameters, the starting coordinate, the radius, and the color code, and finally my thickness, right? Now if I just change my thickness there, you will notice a bigger thickness circle, right? Yeah, you can see the thickness of the circle has been changed since I've changed the last parameter, which one is the thickness, right? So you can notice that there is a bigger thickness of your circle, right? So once we have done this, now let's go and see that how can we draw an ellipse. So ellipse, it actually accepts your parameter as image, right? It will accept your parameter as image, and then you will have starting coordinates, and then you will have the length and height of your ellipse, right? And then you will have the color and then thickness, okay? Color code and then thickness, okay? So for that, you have simply image equal to cv2 dot ellipse, and finally you will have image, and then you will have this height and weight. So I mean the height, length and height, right? So it's actually 400 comma, let's keep it as 400 comma 600, and then all right, so it's actually the starting coordinates, right? So you will need to have the starting coordinates. So this one is my starting coordinates, and length and height, let's keep it length and height. So let's keep it as 100 comma 50, and then you will need to again specify the angle of your image, okay? Like I mean the starting angle, so it's 0 comma 0, and then you need to specify the angle of the turn. So if I do your 270-degree, it means that 270-degree will be the rotation point of my ellipse. And then finally so 0 and 0 is the starting points, right, of an ellipse. And finally you will need a color code, so let's keep the color code as 200, and let's keep the thickness as 2. So the moment I do this, you will notice an ellipse, or you can notice ellipse out there like this, right? So there must be proper coordinates to show it, but then you can try it on your own, right? So this one is basically you get an ellipse. Now the moment I change the angle, let's change it to 180-degree, you'll be noticing, all right, it's actually disappeared. So maybe like you have to adjust something with your starting coordinates, right? So let's keep it as 0 comma 100. Yeah, you can notice ellipse there. Now its angle is 180-degree. Now if I press a 90-degree, or let's say let's keep it as 360, then you're going to notice a change there. Yeah, you can see notice a change there, right? This basically is our ellipse. So basically ellipse is it takes your image first, then the starting coordinates, in my case is 0 comma 100, and then length and height, and this 0 comma 0 comma 360, 0 and 0 is your starting coordinates, okay? I mean the starting points of the ellipse, and then 360 is your like degree of rotation, and then 200 is a color code, and 2 is a simply thickness. Now finally, or you can lastly call that, how do we add text? So for adding a text, you will need these following parameters. So it's going to accept your these parameters, okay? It's going to accept your firstly the image and the text which we are going to keep in your image, and then the starting coordinates, and then the font, then the font size, and the color, and finally the thickness of the letters. So let's go and have a look on how do we put on the text. All right, so for text you will need to have firstly define the font, okay? So first the font is equal to, let's keep it any, so there are a lot of options there. So font underscore, you'll notice a lot of fonts. So in my case, yeah, you can notice a lot of fonts there. So let's keep it Hershey complex, right? And finally let's go and put on whatever we have. So image equal to, you have firstly the image, you have the text, so let's keep the text as all right, cv2, and then you have the starting coordinates. So what is the starting coordinates? You can keep it any, so let's keep it as 20 comma 400, and then you have the font, okay? So font, and then you have the font size, so let's keep it as 3, and the color of your font, so color of your font, yeah, let's keep it as 152 comma 125 comma 255, okay? And the thickness of your lines. So once I do this, you will notice that there is a text out there. or we have got an error. So I have actually missed one thing. So you have to use the cv2 dot put text, isn't it? Put text. Yeah, this is how you do it. So you can notice that there is a cv2, right? So finally, this is how you print your texts. So for text, what I did is that I passed the image, I passed whatever text I need to pass there, so the starting coordinates, the font size, the color code, and the thickness, the line type. So basically, line type is not compulsory. Okay, if you just cancel this, you will not notice any change. So yeah, the line type is not necessary, but if you want to keep, you can. So that is how you actually put the text. Okay, so I hope you have understood how do we put different drawing functions in an OpenCV. So in this case, I showed you how to put on the arrowed line, the rectangle, the circle, the ellipse, and finally how do we also add the text on an image with the help of OpenCV functions. So I hope you have understood these all things. So thank you for watching.